Get started. Let's see. I'm going to send Shannon the passcode really quick. So good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. In northern Nevada, it's a very snowy day, very pretty day as far as I think. Hopefully everyone else is enjoying the snow and staying safe and warm. We have quite a bit of information to update you on today, and we also have the honor and privilege of having Shannon Chambers joining us shortly, who will be giving us an update on the state of housing mediation and what they have going on at the state level to try to take care of folks as they manage through some of this crisis. So with that, I'd like to go ahead and welcome Lori Martin and turn it over to her for our moment of gratitude. Welcome, Lori, and thank you.
Thank you, Linda. So much to be grateful for on this day. So wherever you are, if you're near a window or can gaze outside, appreciate what nature has delivered to us over the last few days. Here, an incredible, beautiful, pristine, snowy landscape. So with appreciation for that, let's just take a few breaths together. Nice, generous breath in, and on the exhale, maybe a little sound, a sigh. And feeling gravity really draw our feet to the earth. And this morning, imagining that these feet are barefoot on the earth, really feeling the ground. Ooh, perhaps chilly and snowy. Perhaps imagining feet on sand or moist earth. And feeling grounded. Feeling the earth beneath our feet grounding us. And what I'd like to share this morning from this place of being solid, grounded, grateful, are some of the words from the beautiful poem that was shared at the inauguration, "The Hill We Climb." We will rise from the gold-limbed hills of the West. We will rise from the windswept Northeast, where our forefathers first realized revolution. We will rise from the lake-rimmed cities of the Midwestern states. We will rise from the sun-baked South. We will rebuild, reconcile, and recover. And every known nook of our nation and every corner called our country, our people diverse and beautiful will emerge, battered and beautiful. When day comes, we step out of the shade of flame and unafraid. The new dawn blooms as we free it, for there is always light. If only we're brave enough to see it. If only we're brave enough to be it. And again, noticing our breath and our feet on the earth. I also want to share these words from our 46th president. Are we going to step up, all of us? It's a time for boldness. So it's our day, another day to be bold in all that we do. So taking another generous breath together. stepping into our day. Grateful. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Lori. I enjoy this part of our meeting so much, and I don't know if everyone else had the opportunity to hear the entire poem recited by the youngest poet laureate at an inauguration, but it was, to me, powerful and spot on and amazing, and yeah, lots of hope in the world these days. So again, thank you very much. Lori, do you want to give us a little bit of update on what's happening on the Volunteer Financial Navigator program as well? You're on mute.
Yes, I would be happy to. Let's see, since our last call, we are focused on sending all of the folks who had applied for CHAP through us and were not funded, sending them to Clark County Social Services. And in some cases, connecting those folks with our volunteer financial navigators to not only direct them there, but assist them with other resources for folks that have many needs and considerations in these times. Grateful for our volunteer financial navigators who have stepped up and are on shift and are giving so much care to our clients as always. Welcoming our newest, I just have to call him out, Steve, who's on the call today, who has been great to dive in and brings great experience with him. And yes, we are, I like to say with our navigators, we are sort of back to really being able to spend time with folks. Honestly, since we are not now the CHAP hub, we are grateful to be able to send folks to the other resources, work with them on spending plans, and do what we've been doing since the beginning. So, and just another call to action, we are still looking for bilingual volunteer financial navigators to join us. So if you know anyone who would like to work with us in that capacity, please send them to our website to apply.
Thank you, Lori. Thank you for being our leader on that program and interfacing and all the other activities we have going on. OANV right now is, like I think everyone else, kind of waiting to see what it looks like for the new stimulus package rollout, what the rental assistance looks like, how we deliver access differently, and see what opportunities we have, again, to be part of the solution, and how we interface with our other statewide stakeholders and the programs they're developing. You know, we learn a lot from our other partners and their best practices and how they're doing things. We share our best practices. The CHAP program that we did participate in, the rental assistance in Clark County, I think I've mentioned many times how impressed I was with our leadership team and the folks that came together to be innovative and work together. And we record a lot of our trainings as well, and we're happy to share our best practices with all. We're actually considering putting together a forum of a debriefing, for lack of a better word, to connect with other agencies to see how it's going with them, what they're doing different, where we can partner, where we can collaborate, where we can work as synergistically as possible to serve our folks in the state of Nevada. So with that said, I would like to introduce Shannon Chambers, our labor commissioner for the state of Nevada. She has been incredibly generous with her time to me to answer questions I have when I have them. She's very responsive. We have a lot of questions to figure out how we participate in helping folks get to whatever the next steps are. And I know for sure we don't all know what those next steps are, but we're working daily to help define them, participate in what those might look like. And with that, I'd like to have Shannon let us know what's going on with the housing mediation programs and anything else she'd like to offer. So welcome, Shannon, and thank you so much for being with us today.
Hi, good morning, Linda, and good morning to everybody on the call. And winter's finally here, so hopefully everybody is enjoying the snow, especially up north, and finally arrived, and a good thing for everybody that likes to ski. And hopefully it'll be nice next week and better sunny days. But anyway, thank you, Linda, again. And so just kind of want to step back a little bit and kind of give you a broader perspective from the Labor Commissioner, and that ties directly into housing and mediation and how those programs are going, and what the Labor Commissioner has seen over the past year, and where I think things are going employment-wise, and hopefully pretty decent recovery starting spring and summer. So the Labor Commissioner, what's interesting about our office is even when the economy is very, very good, we actually get more wage claims. We don't get less wage claims because as the economy expands, more people go to work, there's more options, so we see more wage claims. So it's the same effect when the employment rate starts to go up and the job market starts to get a little soft. We see the same equal amount of wage claims that come in. So this year alone, and a lot of it was COVID-19 driven, we received over 4,500 wage claims. A large percentage of those wage claims came in the last half of 2020. So what was happening was a lot of companies, depending upon their size and their financial situation, were laying employees off with the expectation that they would bring them back within a month or 2 months. And we have seen that in some industries and in some businesses. In other situations, a lot of businesses laid people off, and you had a lot of employees that were kind of out in, excuse the term, kind of limbo land. They didn't know if they were going to be brought back. They didn't know if they were fired. They didn't know, what was going to happen. So as we kind of moved into October, November, December of 2020, we started to see a lot of employers where they were open for a while, then they had to go back to 25%, especially the restaurants and some of the service establishments, where they decided to start terminating employment for employees, which they certainly have a right to do. Nevada is an at-will employment state, so an employer technically has the right to terminate employment without cause at any time. Now, we always recommend that they don't do that. We always recommend that they have cause and some basis for terminating employment, but that's not always the case. So the trend in wage claims through this past year, and it is still continuing, unfortunately, is the failure of employees to pay wages when they're due. So your paycheck is due every other Friday. We are seeing a lot of employers stretch those time frames out, either to give themselves time to get more money coming in or potentially to pursue funding, whether it's the PPP funding or some other type of funding. So we've seen a lot of wage claims involving late paychecks. We have also seen a lot of wage claims in Nevada when you terminate employment or fire somebody, basically is the term. Their wages are due within 3 business days. We're seeing a lot of issues where employers are terminating employment and they're not paying employees within 3 business days. It also applies to an employee who quits employment or resigns. They have to be paid within 7 days of employment. So, 7 days of basically leaving that employment, 7 business days. So we're seeing a lot of issues with that. Seeing a lot of bounce checks. I hate to say that, but a lot of bounce paychecks. And that's a whole different issue. That's a potentially criminal issue. So we refer that to the district attorney's office or in some cases to local law enforcement. We're seeing a lot of issues about breaks and lunches. So as some employers have let some employees go, they've also in some cases increased the hours and increased the scheduling. of existing employees. So we're seeing a lot of complaints of, I was working 8 hours a day, now I'm being asked to work 12 hours a day, I'm not getting a break, I'm not getting a lunch. And so a lot of those types of issues. And our office, we investigate every claim, every complaint. There is a process, so we contact the employer, they get the opportunity to respond, so it goes through a whole process. But it's been very interesting to see just the nature of the claims and complaints. We're now starting to see, and this is a whole different issue, and I just bring this up because probably everybody on this call, if you have employees or you are an employee, the issue of vaccines now and who's going to take them, who's not going to take them, can I fire somebody if they don't take a vaccine? So I just throw this issue out there because we're seeing more and more complaints on it and more issues. So this is one I think at some point will probably end up in the courts, but it ties right into, the job market and the employee situation right now. So in the past year alone, Nevada, the private employment number in Nevada went down 7.6%. Now that's pretty much attributed to the COVID-19 situation. So the hope is next year that number will go up. On our office's behalf, we collected over $2 million in back wages and over $500,000 in penalties just this past year alone. So that was a pretty high number, given the economic situation and given kind of what was going on. What we're finding, too, is a lot of employers that are moving into Nevada from out of state. They kind of sometimes don't know that Nevada has some very unique employment law requirements, so minimum wage, overtime. It's tied to if you offer health care or if you don't offer health care. So we do see issues with new companies that they don't know that distinction. They also, a lot of them don't know that in Nevada, you can't take a tip credit against the minimum wage. So for example, servers, bartenders, waitresses, in other states, you are allowed to deduct a portion of tips from the minimum wage. In Nevada, you're not allowed to do that. So we do see a lot of issues with that as well. So tying this to the housing side and the rental side, the labor situation right now, until that really kind of picks up and improves, we're still going to have evictions and we're going to still have potential foreclosures. So I'm also the president of Home Means Nevada, and I have been since 2017. So we took over certain parts of the foreclosure mediation program. And then this past year, we took over the rental eviction mediation program. So on the foreclosure mediation side, prior to COVID-19, so 2019, in the state of Nevada, there were over 4,000 notice of defaults filed, which potentially could trigger a foreclosure. They can also trigger mediation through the foreclosure mediation program. So a homeowner, and a lot of people don't know this, a homeowner has to petition to participate in the foreclosure mediation program. It is not an automatic. So that is kind of a misconception that, okay, I got a notice of default, I am automatically going to be able to participate in foreclosure mediation. It is not an automatic. The servicer or the bank or whoever is serving that notice of default, they are required to provide notice to the homeowner of the foreclosure mediation program, but the homeowner does have to take an action to actually petition to participate. So the next question we get is, well, what is the participation rate in the foreclosure mediation program? And so it's anywhere between 8 to 10%. And people might say, well, gosh, that seems really, really low. Just to give you perspective, so going back to 2006 through about 2010, when we had the previous kind of housing crisis and the market kind of crashed and a lot of risky loans and different things like that, at one point in time in the state of Nevada, there were 16,000 notice of defaults a month, a month. So that'll kind of give you a perspective. Even with those numbers, even during those years, the participation in the program was only around 3%. So we've actually improved the numbers each and every year, and we've continued to try and improve the program. But it's one of those where, you know, some homeowners, they have some options and they are able to kind of guide themselves through the process and fill out the proper documents and get into the program. Unfortunately for other homeowners, which potentially an organization like Opportunity Alliance or a housing counselor, there may be a role for them to play to help them understand, you know, how you file a petition, how you get your documents together, what you need to do. And that's something that, you know, I'm going to continue to work on, and we'll continue to have conversations with Linda and, you know, other organizations about how we can potentially improve that program. The issue right now is the big unknown. So we certainly know that obviously with individuals who've lost their employment or maybe took a pay cut or are working less hours, that potentially impacts your ability to pay your mortgage. So we know that under the CARES Act, there were certain forbearance provisions that were put in there. So homeowners were able to take advantage of the forbearance periods. That keeps getting pushed out as to when that's going to end. So it was originally supposed to end, and this is mainly for government-backed loans, so your FHA loans, what they call Freddie Fannie loans. Those were scheduled to go off forbearance December 31st of 2020. That was then extended through February 28th, 2021. We now have a new president. We have a new, you know, a whole new administration. So everyone's kind of wondering, well, what's going to happen now? Are they going to keep extending those forbearance periods? Is there going to be mortgage assistance? What's going to happen? Again, it's an unknown. You know, I talk to mortgage servicers, I talk to foreclosure attorneys, and they're all kind of asking the same questions. And the reality now is some of these loans is there's some loans out there where the homeowner hasn't made a payment in over a year now. And again, you know, through an unexpected, horrible public health emergency. But the question is now is if that keeps getting extended, how is the bank or the mortgage servicer going to kind of pick up that loan and kind of backfill the money that's not being paid? So, you know, again, an unknown. On our side, Home Means Nevada side, we are doing everything we can to improve the foreclosure mediation portal, which is an electronic portal where the parties exchange documents, where we do case updates, where we do everything that kind of monitors the case. We did get approval from the Nevada Supreme Court to make that portal mandatory for parties that are represented. So typically a homeowner that has an attorney or a mortgage servicer that has a foreclosure attorney, if they are represented, they have to use the portal. So that was a good thing, and given the COVID-19 situation right now, it makes it much more effective and efficient. We also still have the Homeowner Connect program that is on our website where a homeowner can go in. They are automatically logged into a housing counselor who says, you know, hey, you're on forbearance, you need to contact your bank, or, you know, you need to contact social services or whatever. They document the information. They provide those questions to the mortgage company or the bank. They don't make decisions for the bank or anything, but it's kind of a neutral, independent kind of place where homeowners can go to at least kind of ask some of those basic questions and kind of get pointed in the right direction. And if there's housing programs that start to come in 2021 and mortgage assistance, then we would obviously include that as part of Homeowner Connect so that we could guide homeowners to those programs. So what's happening now, and this notion that there's forbearance and there's no foreclosures and there's nothing going on, that's not entirely true. So I pulled the numbers just from last July through the end of last December. There were 378 notice of defaults filed. Of the 378, we issued 264 certificates to proceed with foreclosure. So foreclosures are still happening. Now, that's a very small amount given where we were at even in 2019, but our office expects that once those forbearance periods end, that we may see a surge in notice of defaults. The good side of that is, to the extent that the foreclosure mediation program offers some alternative to work something out with the lender, we are going to keep working to support that program and to help the homeowners, get their financial packages together, see what options might be available, what other loss mitigation options might be available. The last cycle, there was the short sale, so I don't know if that's going to come back, but obviously the lenders and those types of individuals, if that's something that benefits the homeowner, that might be on the table as part of this program. So we'll just have to see. The foreclosure mediation program, typically from start to finish, if they file a petition to participate, it typically takes 6 to 9 months. And it's more of a legally driven process, so exchange of documents, the lender wants to make sure they have all the information, then the mediator obviously has to review the documents, and then if we get to the final stage where there's a mediation, then if there's some type of an agreement that can be worked out, then the parties kind of go through that process, and we don't issue a certificate to proceed with foreclosure. So that program, and what's interesting is when I took over Home Means Nevada in 2017, there was talk back then about possibly getting rid of the foreclosure mediation program because the economy was doing very well, the housing market was doing very, very well, and so it was a whole kind of different analysis back then. Now it might be needed in a different way. So again, we're making every effort to improve it, make it user-friendly, and when we get to that point where potentially the forbearance periods end, we'll be doing a lot more outreach to homeowners and to the public to notify them of the program, and we'll have to see how that goes and kind of what happens in the next few months. So on the rental eviction mediation side, this is a lot more active right now. In October of 2020, Home Means Nevada was appointed as the administrator for the rental eviction mediation program. This was a whole new program that was enacted during the second special session of the Nevada legislature. So what the intent of it was if there was an eviction notice that was served on a tenant, the tenant could file an answer essentially saying, the reason why I can't pay my rent is because I've been impacted by COVID-19 and I want to go to mediation. So this program specifically was funded with CARES Act funds. So the eviction proceeding and the reason for the eviction and the tenant answer, and I'm going to say this in a general way, they all had to be COVID related because that was the source of the funding. So how it kind of rolled out was what they call an attestation, which you'll probably hear that term more and more now, but the tenant, once they were served with that eviction notice, they could fill out an attestation essentially saying, I lost my job because of COVID-19 and that's why I can't pay my rent, or I had to take care of somebody who had COVID-19 and, couldn't work, or so it had to be COVID related. And we have seen some cases that have been sent to the program that are not COVID related. We still try and work those cases out, but we do see cases still where, a tenant's refusing to pay rent because they say that the landlord hasn't fixed the sink or different things like that. We try and screen those cases off and, again, try and work those out in a different way, but they're kind of a different eviction case than the COVID-19 cases. The other part of it is that the COVID-19 cases, and the individual mentioned it earlier, and I apologize for not remembering your name, but the whole rental assistance piece, then comes into play. So the majority of the eviction cases, and I'm not saying anything that everybody doesn't already know, the majority are in Clark County. So between October and December of last year, we processed over 1,313 cases just out of Las Vegas alone. So that's a lot of cases in about 2.5 months. Now, the good side of that is when we first started the program, people were saying there was going to be 5,000 cases, there was going to be 10,000 cases. That turned out not to be true, which is a good thing. So out of that, about 1,300 cases, and statewide, it was over 1,500 cases, a lot less eviction cases in northern Nevada and then kind of the other counties. But out of those about 1,500 cases statewide, we were able to get agreements in about 48% of the cases, which is, again, a pretty good result given all the circumstances. One of the challenges with this program, and it's one of the things that I've been having conversations about and how to improve it, is unfortunately some of these tenants, they get served with an eviction notice. They say they want to go to mediation, and then when you assign it to a mediator, the mediator cannot get a hold of them, or the phone number is no longer valid, or they don't answer their email. So in many of the cases where we were not able to get an agreement, it was because we could not find the tenant, or in some situations the tenant had already vacated the property, so they filed, that they wanted to go through mediation. They then just turned in the keys and left. And then there's always the other cases that are kind of in the middle where the tenant maybe is taking advantage of the situation, and I'm just going to say it that way, where they actually have the money to pay the rent, but they are choosing not to do that, and there may be an issue with the landlord or, communication issues and different things like that, and we saw some cases like that, and we were able to work those out. The bigger batch of cases, and mainly again in Clark County, is you have tenants who just simply cannot pay the rent. They are either in the rental assistance pipeline or queue, as I'm hearing all the time, or they haven't applied at all, and they don't know how to apply, and they don't know what to do. So as part of the eviction mediation program, we had kind of a direct line to not only to unemployment, but also to rental assistance, so that if somebody was actually in the eviction mediation program, that they had already been served with an eviction notice, that we could kind of fast track their application through the rental assistance program or either through the unemployment program to see if there was any way to prevent them from actually being evicted. Now, I don't want anybody to think, knowing unemployment and even knowing what's going on with rental assistance, that this was some type of special treatment for special people. It's directly related to the reality that these people are either going to get money or they're going to be evicted. And they're going to be potentially out on the streets and homeless, or have to find new housing through, some of the housing programs in Clark County. So that's why it was kind of built that way. We are looking to kind of improve all of that and improve that process. And I've been having conversations with Clark County and with legal aid and with various different groups of, one of the questions on that rental assistance application should be, have you been served with an eviction notice? And those cases potentially should probably take a different track. The other reality here is that it's 10 times better to actually go into a mediation to know that this person qualifies for rental assistance or qualifies for unemployment, know exactly what they're going to get, and then you have some room to actually mediate a potential agreement. So again, we're trying to improve some of those things on our side. What we know right now too is we have the new state moratorium on evictions that goes through the end of March. We still have the federal CDC moratorium, which is now through the end of January. Again, there's been talk of extending that as well. What we do know is that doesn't fix things. It just puts a pause. So when those moratoriums were put into place, and especially the last one, the state moratorium, there were eviction cases that were already pending in the courts. So the courts had to basically put the brakes on those cases and say, we're going to take them off the calendar, or we're going to issue a stay based on the new moratorium order. But those cases are still there. So what everybody thinks could happen, at least the people that I'm talking to about, the courts and legal aid, is that once that March 31st date comes, we may see another surge of another 1,000, 2,000 eviction cases that end up right back in the court. So what we're trying to do now is to work with the courts, mainly Las Vegas, work with rental assistants, and try to get a list of those cases that are kind of just sitting there right now, see if we can work those cases in terms of rental assistance or unemployment or whatever, so that they don't end up back in the court system in March or April, which likely would be April. So we're working on that as we speak. Hopefully we can get some results there. The other issue here, and it's an issue and just a reality, is even for some of those individuals who received rental assistance, and let's say, for example, it was paid directly to the landlord or it paid the back rent, there were these agreements, and that's the only way I'm going to reference them. There were these agreements that if the landlord received rental assistance, that they couldn't evict the tenant for 60 days. Well, we saw cases where once that 60-day hit, that landlord went back and said, can you pay the rent? And the tenant said, no, I still can't not pay the rent. And so the landlord went through with another eviction. And again, you can't blame a landlord, because some of these landlords have been out of pocket, basically, rent, in some cases 6 to 9 months. And, I can tell you my experience with this program is there are landlords who are extremely reasonable and totally want to do the right thing, and same thing, they don't know where to go, they don't know what to do, they don't know if they can apply for rental assistance on behalf of their tenant. Now, you definitely have the landlords that may take advantage of a situation, but you have tenants like that too. That's a small percentage in my opinion, but the reality here, and this is my opinion, is you can fix part of this, but the real issue now is, how do you pay the rent going forward? And that's one of the discussions that I know is being talked about with the new rental assistance funds that are going to come from the last stimulus bill that was passed at the end of December of last year, is can there be some type of rental assistance that pays for the rent going forward? Again, I don't have the answer to that question, and there's still a lot of questions about how that rental assistance money is going to flow and what the requirements are and how it's going to look. The housing and agency at the federal level, they did put out some initial frequently asked questions, but there's still a lot of questions that are just, not answered. So we're going to continue to run the rental eviction mediation program. We're seeing right now anywhere between 10 and 15 cases a week. So even with those moratoriums and those stays in place, there are still some evictions that are going forward, and we're trying to work those situations out and get rental assistance and get unemployment if we can. There are also just some situations where the eviction process is going to go forward and that tenant will be evicted, and those are for reasons that in many cases are absolutely valid and legally valid, and that's why it does ultimately go before a judge in terms of if the eviction is actually going to be granted. But the one thing I just kind of want to emphasize here, and kind of like on the potential foreclosure side, is, and I've had this conversation, at some point these moratoriums are going to end, and the question is, what are we doing between now and then what are we going to do when they do end, and how are we going to help those people and process rental assistance quicker, process unemployment quicker, on the foreclosure side, maybe process some type of loan modification quicker. So these are all issues that Home Means Nevada is working on, and we're working with various partners and various organizations. And, I've had several conversations with Linda, and certainly want Opportunity Alliance to be part of that. But it is, back to my point about it is the unknown, but I don't want to lose any time between now and the end of March if we can do some things either on the rental eviction side or on the foreclosure side. So that's kind of a big picture of all of that, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Wow, Shannon, thank you. A tremendous amount of information. I appreciate the wage information also to tie it to the housing and the evictions and what might be coming up. So anyone else, I have a few questions, but I want to let everyone jump in. Ken Evans from Vegas, our urban chamber, said let's be as proactive as possible. Ken, I don't know if you want to jump in and have a little bit of a conversation. I know we're at our time limit, but if folks don't mind staying on a little bit longer, I think this could be a really valuable conversation.
Good morning. No, I don't have anything to add, but I just agree. I think we need to be as proactive as possible. I think one thing that'll help is if we at least get people employed where they're making a current payment, hopefully there can be some relief or modifications on the past due balance. But I think something that'll definitely help is figuring out ways to get people to at least make their current payment or payments.
Absolutely, thank you. And, I have a couple process questions, Shannon, and I know you and I talk a lot, but just for the benefit of this group, you said that when foreclosure proceedings happen, so these are homeowners, not the renters, when foreclosure proceedings start, the lender notifies the homeowner that they can apply for mediation. And I think there's a form in the package the homeowner receives to know how to apply for the mediation process. Is that correct?
So that is correct. So they actually petition. So they don't apply, they actually petition to the court. But essentially, it's a form, and I can send you the link for it, Linda, so that you can send it to your group to see it. It's a form basically saying I am electing to petition to participate in the foreclosure mediation program. They then have to take that to the district court, and they actually have to pay a filing fee for that. Now, the court has the discretion to waive that filing fee, but yes, the lender has to notify the homeowner of the petition and how to do it.
And also, from what I understand, Shannon, and I'm sorry, I try to be more positive than a naysayer, but from what I understand, all the courts, there's no unified process for each court, each district court, because there's many, north and south, especially the south, where we're going to probably see a lot of this. There's not a uniform process for how the district courts are going to manage these petitions. Is that correct?
So that is correct, and boy, that was something I really learned in the rental eviction mediation program. Also, many of the courts do not have electronic filing, and they do not use the same electronic filing system. So your statement is absolutely 100% correct. So it's different in every court, and the size and scope of the court and the county will impact all of that. But that was a big eye-opener. And I already knew that anyway, just being on the legal side of things, but I didn't realize that some courts really, and I'm not joking, there were some courts that told us we don't even have the ability to scan. So, that'll give you an idea of just the variation in size and scope of the court system. And yes, there is no standard. There's the standard form, but how it gets processed could be totally different.
So Deb has a question, but Deb, before you jump in, just for some clarification, Shannon, when folks are going to enter this process, when Lori's group is talking to them, because they're still getting a tremendous amount of calls, do we refer them to Home Means Nevada? Do we refer them to legal aid? Do we refer to both at the same time? I don't want to clog up systems other places either. So we would like to know, are you going to be able, you meaning Home Means Nevada, going to be able to direct them on the legal side as well? could you guys be the one-stop shop, or how should we do our referral process?
So it's probably best to just refer them like to our website, and then all the information's there about legal aid and different things like that. You know, what I would say to you is, if it's a real legal question and they need legal assistance, then definitely send them to legal aid. And, you know, that's typically what we do too if we get those kind of questions, or we refer them to our website and it has all the links. And but, you know, this is one of those areas where, you know, as a homeowner, if you're if you're not represented, and you know, you're going to need some help, and how that can come from an organization like OA or legal aid, and that's one of the things going forward that we're going to try and improve is, if it's a homeowner that's not represented and they really need some assistance kind of getting through that process or getting to the right entities, that's one of the things we're going to work on.
Thank you. And Deb, your question, is there a mechanism for tracking or tacking on additional time on the end of a mortgage loan, extended dates for payments and not made if they are able to pay going forward? Just so you know, I've invited some lenders to come and speak to us as well. I'm not sure who can answer that question, or if anyone can yet. I'm not sure if, Shannon, that's something you can address. But again, I've asked the other side of the equation to come and talk to us too, because I want to know, I'm sure there's pain points and barriers on their side as well. But go ahead, Shannon.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, I think it depends on the loan and all those factors, you know, price of the house, the loan, income. You know, that's my understanding of it, Deb, is, you know, some of these loans are literally going to have to be worked loan by loan by loan, you know, kind of similar to what happened the last housing, you know, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, I have not heard of like a standard, you know, kind of a standard industry thing saying, you know, every loan that's 9 months old will be tacked on at the end. My understanding of it is that in most of these cases, it's going to have to be a case-by-case analysis.
Thank you. And Shannon, I'm kind of putting you on the spot, and I don't know you know the answer to this, but are we in the process, we, the collective we, our state, our stakeholders, the people that, you know, serve our communities, when these eviction stays are lifted and there's the potential of an enormous amount of people being evicted and being on the streets, knowing that landlords deserve their pay just as much as anyone else. I know landlords are struggling to pay their property taxes, that our lenders should not go unpaid for forever. We're not saying that. What I'm asking is, are there programs being established now that help folks who do end up, I guess the term's going to be homeless, where there's rapid rehousing? Is there, you know, Ken talked about the need for employment, and I know there's multiple facets to this problem. Do you know if there is a movement for what to do when the eventual evictions do happen?
So my understanding, Linda, is that, you know, there's various groups and entities and housing division and housing authorities and economic development that everybody's talking about all of these issues and coming up with plans. I think one of the, again, back to the unknown, is nobody quite knows what's going to happen in the next 3 or 4 months in terms of another potential stimulus package, and if that's going to have money from the federal government that is basically given to the states to kind of fill their budget holes. So Nevada, we're heading into a legislative session where we have a budget hole. And so I do believe that those conversations are happening and that plans are being developed. I think it's an issue of where's the money going to come from? Part of it too, just getting some more guidance on this last round of stimulus of what it can and cannot be used for. And then maybe February, March, we'll have more of an answer on the potential next stimulus and whether there's going to be money actually given to the states to plug some of their budget holes. But again, I think some of this right now is just an unknown.
Thank you. And I know we're getting late again, but I just want to tack on to something that Ken said about employment. And I just need to express my frustration that I know there is money that's available that has come either in grant form at whatever level within the government agencies that be for workforce re-engagement, how we get these folks retrained and back to work. There's money. I mean, do we need to give it to small nonprofits to manage it and get it out quickly and do it quick and be able to turn on a dime on our ability to be agile and mobile? Or how do we get in there and get to be part of this so that we can get things done quickly? This delay, when there's a tremendous amount of money already on the table for certain issues, is so frustrating. So I'll leave that there. Anyone else that wants to jump in, please do. And Shannon, I know you're not the be all end all to fix all of this, but I know you participate at very high levels. So would love to express our frustration, and also that, you know, payments to our general folks coming from the through our unemployment system is not a great avenue for Nevada.
No, thank you, Linda, and I take those comments to heart, and I will communicate that as best that I can to the people that I talk to about these issues. And my hope is, you know, I tend to like to move fast, and we've do that on the labor side too. So I'm going to keep pushing these issues, and hopefully we'll get to a place where things start flowing a little bit better, and the economy starts coming back more, and people are working more, and all those things go together. And hopefully that'll happen sooner rather than later. But for now, you know, my point is I don't want to lose any time. And, you know, we're basically in February now. And for those of you who know February, it's like one of those months that it's here and it's gone. So we'll be in March before you know it.
Yes, thank you, Shannon. And you and I are similar that way. We want to move fast. We want to get things done, not that others don't. So that's why I think these forums are so important. And, you know, I thank you all so much for your participation. Ken, definitely, we want to continue this conversation that you work on the Governor's Workforce Development Board. I have a lot of opinions, as you can tell, and a lot of that stems from our work directly with the general public, and what Lori Martin and our team try to affect every day. These folks calling in and still scared, and you know, where do we send them? And everyone on this call is part of the solution, and is open, you know, and appreciate the open and authentic conversations that we can have. So with that said, I will quit talking. Anyone else that would like to jump in or have some input? Okay, it doesn't look like there's any. And Shannon, thank you so much for your time, for what you're doing at every level at the state to assist in getting programs put together and managed in a really effective and speedy way, and for sharing information. It's so helpful to, I think, everyone on this call. So thank you so much for your time, and for everyone else that has participated today. And we will see you in 2 weeks, and I will call you pretty soon. So thank you.
Thanks, Linda. Thank you, everyone.
Wonderful day.
Bye-bye.